Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Strangers and Exiles podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Toirac, and this is my co-host, Daniel Toirac Sr.
Hello, everyone. God bless you all.
Welcome back to another episode, continuing on Hinduism.
Hinduism, man. I didn't think we were going to be on this long, but there really is a lot to say.
Yeah.
By the way, I do got to say one thing. I rewatch the podcast, like whenever you post them, like usually on my way to church or whatever. Is it weird that I find myself interesting? Like watching the video of myself, I'm like, that guy is interesting. But then I have to remember that it's me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway, you have something to say to the audience?
Make sure to like and subscribe, please, and follow, share, wherever you're on. It helps us a lot. It helps grow the channel, helps get this message out to more people. So if you can, please do so.
They're very good.
You find yourself interesting?
I like listening to myself. I'm like,
well, I would be that guy's friend.
Yeah, like I would be his friend. Like me and him would get along. But then I look at the screen and it's me. And then I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
So last week we finished off the long chapter on karma.
A lot to say about karma. Oof.
That's probably like just one of the more important parts of the religion. It's kind of the crutch of the religion.
Also, when you're not a Hindu, it's the most controversial.
Yeah, exactly. So getting off of that, now we're going on a creation projection. It's weird stuff that they were putting here that I read through. It's interesting.
There we go again. It's interesting.
You have that word in my head now 'cause you found yourself interesting.
You put it in there yourself.
I know you're talking about the 9 million years thing you were mentioning or 9 billion years you were mentioning before. So any opening thoughts before we just get into it?
No, it's all crazy.
Cool.
Like this is just some dude made it up and then people believe it. I mean, what do you want me to tell you, you know? So I just jump into it?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so these are their views on creation, and they also call it projection. We as Christians, we believe in a literal 6-day creation. We believe that God created the heavens and the earth. You go to Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2. You have all of the accounts there. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion when it comes into this about when the earth was created in relation to mankind. Did God pause in between some of those days to allow for the science and carbon dating finding out? There are old earth believers. There are new earth believers. There's a lot to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that today because that would literally take me an hour just to talk about that. But in other words, that is the Christian perspective on creation. The Lord, together with the Spirit of the Lord, together with the pre-incarnate Christ, were all three present there, creating the heavens and the earth. We know that Christ is the form of creation. He is the word that makes things be. So we know that God oversaw, Christ actually created the world, and we know that the Spirit was hovering over the waters. But now this is what they believe. And this is one of their quotes. Those who know the duration of the cosmic day and night understand that a day and a night of Brahma each last for 1,000 yugas. So in other words, one day and night for Brahma. Now remember, Brahma okay, I have to repeat this because then people forget it. Their main god is Brahman. Brahman has a female counterpart. They are everywhere, everything, all at once. They are supreme consciousness. Brahman reveals himself in the form of Isvara. Isvara is what we would like in our terminology when we say Yahweh, then we say Lord. Isvara is the projection of Brahman. Now, Isvara breaks down into 6 different people. You have Brahma, you have Shiva, and you have Vishnu. Brahma is the creator. So in other words, when we talk about the creation of the world, it is Brahma, which is one of 6 parts of Isvara, which is a projection of Brahman. Did you capture all of that? Now, Isvara has Brahman, who it is the creator. Vishnu is the sustainer. He sustains the world. Shiva is the destroyer. And of course, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu all have their female girlfriend counterparts that also help out in all of this. If that wasn't crazy enough for you already, just for you to consume that, look, go and get what is the bread that they use over there?
Naan.
Yeah, get a naan, preferably garlic naan. Put everything that I just said on that naan and take a bite and chew it and try to digest what I just said. Okay. But let's keep reading. So now that we know that Brahma, not Brahmin, Brahma, which is one of the three. For Brahma, one day and night last 1,000 yugas. Now you might ask me, first of all, what is a yuga? Second of all, how many years is 1,000 yugas?
What's a yuga and how many years is 1,000 yugas?
Yuga is kind of like an age, I guess you could say. 1,000 yugas, just so you know, audience. So one day and night for Brahma, the creator, is equivalent to 8,640,000,000 years. Yeah, even the producer was like, huh? Exactly. So one day and night, of course, our Bible says that one day is like for 1,000 years for God, and 1,000 years is like one day. They took it a lot further. I mean, they didn't just do 1,000. They did 8,640,000,000 years is one day and night for Brahma. Okay. This is from the Bhagavad Gita. Remember, this is probably considered their Bible, I guess, if you want to look at it. Do you remember what the Bhagavad Gita is?
It's written by can't remember the name now.
Krishna, yeah. Yeah, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, the entire book is Krishna having a dialogue, and I can never remember the dude's name. But Krishna, just so you know, was the 8th avatar of the Lord Vishnu, which is the second part of the Isvara, which is the projection of Brahman. Okay. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verses 17 and 18. All the manifested entities come forth from the unmanifest at the coming of the day of Brahma. At the coming of the night, they are dissolved into that alone, which is known as the unmanifest. Can you explain that verse to me? The reason I ask is I have no idea what it says.
Yeah, I don't know what it's.
It doesn't make sense to me.
I think it's like it's like almost a metaphor. All the manifested entities, so all life comes forth from nothing on the day of Brahma, which is creation.
Okay. And the day, and then go ahead, keep reading.
And then on the coming night, which I assume is at the end of the 8 billion years, the end of the world, there's everything is get destroyed, I guess.
Everything gets dissolved?
Yeah. Into that which is known as the unmanifest, which I guess is nothingness.
So in other words, every 8,640,000 years, on that first day, Brahma creates, and on the last day, he dissolves.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I thought Brahma was a creator, but the third guy is the dissolver.
Shiva,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Once again, see, we're not clear here. Is it that Shiva dissolves it?
I guess they don't mention it by name, but
yeah. It doesn't. It just because it just says the day of Brahma, but it doesn't really say who's doing this. Remember, there's 6 people. That it might be one of the girlfriends. All right. Also from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 7. Now is when we get a little bit more interesting, Junior. All beings, or Arjuna, yeah, that's the guy's name, Arjuna.
Oh, Arjuna.
Yeah. Krishna is talking to Arjuna. All beings, O Arjuna, are absorbed into my nature, and that is called prakriti, at the end of a cycle of time. So in other words, this is Krishna talking. Remember, Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. Vishnu is the sustainer. Krishna is here talking to his friend Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. All beings, O Arjuna, are absorbed into my nature at the end of a cycle of time. Now, according to Krishna, how long is a cycle of time, Junior?
It's more than trillion. The one above trillion, I think.
It says 311 trillion 40 billion years is one cycle.
Yeah.
So Krishna is telling his homeboy here that at the end of 311 trillion 40 billion years, everything will be back absorbed into his nature. And then he says, again, I send them forth at the beginning of a new cycle.
So another 311 trillion.
That it starts up again. So according to what we have as recorded history, we are very early on in this cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only, 7,000 years into the cycle? So we got a long ways to go to get to the end of the cycle, according to Krishna. All right.
Guess we're getting there.
Now, once again, if I was wearing an orange burqa thing, whatever outfit, and I'm with a white thing, and I'm with sandals, because that's what they wear. They wear sandals. And I got a shaved head. And I go to you, and I say, son, or sir, do you understand that we are presently in a cycle instituted by our Lord Krishna, and that this cycle will end in a period of 311 trillion years? What would you think of me?
Psychopath.
You would think that I am completely out of my mind, right? Yeah. Okay, but this is what they teach. So what do you want me to tell you about it? The sacred scriptures teach us that the scheme of creation, or rather projection, in other words, they don't believe that the world was literally created. This is all a projection. There's most hardcore Hindus actually think that you're a projection. Like you're not real. You're not actually there. You're not physically. Like it's my mind telling me that I'm touching you, but you're not really there. Basically, the Matrix. I swear, the Matrix ripped off Hinduism, and just like Avatar did. All of these movies literally ripped off Hinduism, the core beliefs of Hinduism. All right, can I get back, Neo?
Yeah.
All right. Or rather, projection of the universe is not a linear process as is taught by the Abrahamic coalition. In other words, we believe it is linear. The Lord literally on day 1 created this, day 2 created that, day 3. And then subsequently, the last 7,000 years, humanity has played its role. The Lord has played its role within humanity. The Lord has inspired and given his words to human beings to be able to pass them on to generation. The Lord Christ himself came down 2,000 years ago, gave his life so that humanity could be saved through his sacrifice. We believe in a linear type of creation, a literal linear creation. These people believe, however, that it is cyclical, as is every dynamic process in the cosmos that we can observe, such as time itself, the seasons, the life cycles of plants, animals, and humans, the orbits of the planets, and even those of the atoms are all cyclic. So in other words, instead of believing that God created the world, they believe that the world exists through cycles. Now, once again, we saw that one day was 8 billion years for Brahma. Every cycle, according to Krishna, is 311 trillion years, which, okay, that sounds interesting to me. I don't know if he did like some, if they got like what is the amount of light years from here to like the sun? And then they said, okay, that's one cycle.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like 8 minutes, I think.
8 minutes?
Yeah, it only takes 8 minutes for light to get to the sun.
No. But what is the distance in miles? And then you calculate that to years. I'm literally making this up. I have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
It wouldn't be a year.
Okay.
It'd only be 8 minutes.
By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, we finally, me and my wife, wrapped up the nativity. You can't really see them, but the three wise guys are behind me. The 3 wise guys. And then we put like fake palm tree leaf deals up there on the roof. So I don't know. I'm very happy with the way it came out this year. Anyway, getting back to this. So they say the dynamic sequence of the universe consists of, number 1, coming into being. In other words, expansion from a single point. So in other words, how they would say this is creation. It's number 1, coming into being. And then number 2, existence. And then number 3, dissolution or transformation at the end of every cycle. So in other words, you got coming into being, you have the world existing, and then you have the ultimate dissolution, and then suddenly a new cycle begins. Now, I got to ask you a question, dude. See what Krishna says. Does the world like does it just like a David Copperfield magic trick? Like he made the Empire State Building disappear? Like does the Earth disappear and then suddenly a new one comes in? Because based on what they said, it's coming into being, expansion from a single point. So in other words, does this Earth do they just like crumble it and then like chew it up like a bubble gum and spit it out, and then a new one comes in, or does the Earth stay there? It's just now suddenly we start from zero.
No, I think it's talking about the whole universe, and the first point is essentially the Big Bang Theory. I know you guys watch that show, you and producer.
Yeah, but this is the scientific one, not the nerd one.
Well, Big Bang Theory is the theory that the universe came from a single point.
Okay.
And then a huge amount of energy and matter just exploded, and then eventually over millions, billions of years turned into planets and stuff.
311 trillion.
Sure, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
And then I guess their point is that eventually just gonna all disappear again, and then I guess it'll go back to a single point. I don't know.
Okay, but will all the universe? Because remember, we have our universe, but our universe is just a speck amongst the bigger universe, like the Milky Way, and then suddenly you have the Three Musketeers, huh?
That's a galaxy.
The what?
That's a galaxy.
Wait, okay, so what is our thing? Our solar system.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you back out a little bit, what is the next?
It's a galaxy.
Okay, what is?
Well, I'm sure there's something between that, but I don't know what.
Okay, what is our galaxy called?
The Milky Way.
That's what I just said. That
you said universe. Universe is everything.
Oh no! My bad. I made a mistake, dude. All right, come on, 7th grade science teacher over here. All right, and then you back out a little bit. In other words, our solar system is part of a cluster, right? But then we've seen those new NASA things where they show these galaxies, like there's a bunch of galaxies, like there's a bunch of universe. There's one universe, but there's a bunch of galaxies in them.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm trying to ask. I don't know if Krishna can give me a good answer, or maybe Prophet Google can give us an answer. At the end of their cycle, does everything just disappear? Like, in other words, does Mars just disappear?
I mean, I think that's what this person is trying to say, but I don't know if that's the main.
Does the Milky Way disappear? Does the Three Musketeers disappear? Does the Snickers disappear? Does the whatchamacallit disappear? Does the Take 5 disappear? Does the Baby Ruth disappear? Baby Ruth. Okay, but you know what I'm getting at, right? Okay, look, Prophet Google's helping us out.
It says a cyclical process where born, exists, and then is destroyed. So I guess they think everything will be destroyed eventually at the end of that 311 trillion years.
Do they tell us how it'll be destroyed? No. Is it Shiva?
I don't know.
Shiva dissolves everything, and then it all just go bloop, 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 back into Brahman?
Probably.
Okay, makes a lot of sense to me. Isvara is the efficient cause as well as the material cause of the universe. Remember, Isvara is the projection of Brahman, the main god. He projects the universe from within himself and then enters into it through his power of omnipresence. And remember, Isvara is the projection of Brahman, but Isvara projects himself as the Brahma, which is the creator, as Vishnu, the sustainer, and as Shiva, the dissolver or the destroyer. So when it says here Isvara, it means all of the projections of Isvara as well.
Okay, wait, but Isvara is projecting the universe from within him, but then where's Brahman coming into play? If Isvara is everything, where's Brahman?
I asked you that like 2 podcasts ago.
Okay, but I thought it was different, but this is different than what?
I literally 2 podcasts ago, I literally asked you that. I'm like, wait up. So Isvara, if Isvara can become an avatar as a little girl in India, who's Brahman then? Like, isn't Isvara a projection of Brahman, or is Isvara just like a section of Brahman? Like, in other words, Brahman is everything, and then he takes a chunk of himself. He's like, okay, Brahman is a loaf of bread. He gives Isvara is a slice. A slice of bread.
I think it actually says it later on in this paragraph.
It does? Well, read it. Get to it, because this stuff is crazy.
Where'd you end? Omnipresence?
Yeah.
He pervades the entire cosmos from within and without. Nothing can be created from nothing, so Isvara himself is the material substance from which the physical universe arises. It exists in Isvara and is withdrawn back into Isvara at the end of the creation cycle. So Isvara is like the one God here.
But wait, didn't Krishna just tell us in the Gita that it all goes to him?
Yeah, he did say that.
Look, I'm just being fair here, right? You know what? If we were talking to a Muslim, we'd say, look, this surah has one thing, this surah says something else. Oh, it's corrupt or whatever. There, literally, Krishna just told you, Krishna, who is an avatar of Vishnu. But then, is Krishna Isvara? Because he is part of Isvara, is he not?
Yeah.
So ultimately, does he not just like fold up into Isvara?
I guess.
Okay. All right, keep going. You're actually doing pretty good.
The process of emanation/projection is followed by a period of withdrawal and then reprojection. The Hindu theory of cosmology is one of a unified field in which matter, the Godhead, and the individual selves, or jivas, are all modification of one being, Brahman. So they're all Brahman.
But that's what we said in the first podcast.
Yeah.
Everything is Brahman. Everything is like you are a ray of sunlight from Brahman. You are literally the self, the jiva, not you, Danny, the person in you that makes you.
Oh, the individual selves is like everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is everything. Remember, everything, even the tree outside is a self, you know? The dog is a self, you know? Everything is a self. But the koi pond I have out there, each of them are selves. So yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so do you want to sum up what they believe about creation just so people don't leave here even more confused?
I guess essentially Isvara created, or not Isvara, one of the gods, they created the universe within, and that took 8 billion years, I think.
Okay. Well, that's what the first guy said.
That's what they created, and it took 8 billion years.
Well, he says that, yeah, one day for Brahma and one night is 8,640,000. But then if you go to the Gita, Krishna tells us that the cycle, which is basically the earth, the universe, everything is 311 trillion 40 billion years.
Yeah.
So in other words, every 311 trillion years, the Shiva dissolves everything. And then Brahma go ahead and creates a whole, with Isvara obviously projecting as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They create a whole new universe.
I feel like they're, whoever wrote
Stupid.
this is like contradicting themselves, because at first it says the 8 billion, but then where'd the 311 trillion come from?
That's from the Gita. That's Krishna talking.
But the Gita, where we read that in the beginning, where it all comes to the beginning of the day and then at the night is dissolved. So isn't that the 8.5 billion years?
You would think that, that it was, in other words,
at the beginning of the day.
I don't think they know that they made a major mistake here.
Yeah.
That in one quote, they mention that the cycle, the cosmic day and night, which is, you would assume is the cycle, right, is 8,640,000,000 years. But then Krishna, he took it a little bit further, and he said to Arjuna, his best friend, saying, guess what? The cycle of time, that everything is going to be absorbed into me, and then all of that, we'll create it again. A new cycle is 311 trillion years.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we'll go to Prophet Google, peace be upon him, to see later on what he says about this. So basically, they believe in the creation as a cycle. Once again, we got a conflict here. Is it 8 billion years or 311 trillion years? Either way, it doesn't matter because they're both false anyway. But they believe that Earth is in a cycle. The universe is in a cycle. It is created. It is sustained. It is created by Brahma. It is sustained by Vishnu. It is dissolved by Shiva. And then ultimately there's a time, and then a new cycle begins. So in other words, once again, add everything we just said to your garlic naan and try to consume that.
So the next part, probably next to karma, the most important part is the practical aspect of Hinduism, Dharma, or right living.
Yeah, Dharma is basically what we would call in our circles Christian living.
Yeah.
You know, it's the life that you are now living, having Christ dwell within you. It is the changes that you make. It is how you conduct yourself. It is what you do with your time. It is how you spend your time either serving God or doing things of the flesh. They have the same concept over there in Hinduism. However, in Hinduism, it is completely works-based. Dharma, it equates to works-based type of living. Very similar to the Muslims, where the Muslims feel that if they do the 5 pillars, that if they do their prayers every single day, that somehow they're going to make it to heaven with their 70 virgins and their 300 little man boy servants. And they're going to be able to have all of that goodness with Allah and all of that. These people have the same thing. If you do good Dharma, if you live your life right, then you're getting closer to your liberation or your moksha so that you could be reabsorbed into Brahman. That is the ultimate thing to end this cycle of suffering and free yourself from this suffering world that we live in. I started thinking the other day when we're driving back. We were on vacation last week. We road trip, so we're driving back. And I started thinking, because I was listening to something in the, I don't know if it was CP, somebody mentioned gurus. And I started thinking, people go to the guru because the guru somehow has a heightened enlightenment, right? Mm-hmm. What we read before about about your liberation, what does it say? You have to be under a guru. You have to learn from a guru, right?
Yeah.
If it takes 100,000 births and rebirths in order for you to receive liberation, not one of those gurus has ever been liberated. No one has ever been liberated. Because if it's 100,000 births and rebirths, those guys that profess that they know more, guess what? They're still going to die. Yeah. In other words, what proof? I'm sorry, I'm getting loud. What proof do we have? Do we have one dude that died and maybe saw Brahman and then maybe they brought him back to life and then he can confirm this? What proof do we have that you can eventually receive liberation? What proof do we have besides some people writing these things down? See, we have a literal Christ that came to this world. We have a literal Abraham. We have a literal Moses that parted the Red Sea. We have historical artifacts that prove that King David was king of Israel, of Judah. We have proof that Solomon's temple existed. We have proof that the second temple existed. We have proof that the Jews were exiled in Babylon. We have proof from the 400 years of silence period that the Maccabees actually existed. We have proof that King Herod redid the temple, fixed it up. We have proof that Jesus Christ was around from actual historical facts. We have proof from the New Testament of all of the things that occurred all throughout Asia Minor, Greece, from the book of Acts. We have proof from the early church fathers and all of their writings of how the gospel transformed and changed lives. What proof do we have that any of this is actually real besides just written in books? Like, in other words, the idea of a cycle being either 8 billion or 311 trillion years, and then at the end we all get reabsorbed back into Brahman, and then suddenly Isvara, through the work of Brahma, recreates, and then Vishnu sustains, and then at the end of so what is Shiva doing for 311 trillion years? Is he just waiting? Because at least Vishnu has like the daily grind job. He's a sustainer. Yeah. He's the one that he's on call 24/7. Brahma, all he does is show up every 311 trillion years and boop, 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 create the universe, create the world. And then Shiva, he's on a 311-year vacation. He comes back from his sabbatical, he dissolves. Who can give me proof that any of this is actually real? What, Buddha? Buddha arriving? What, Krishna and his warped out talk with Arjuna? I'm supposed to take that as fact? All right. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. Forgive me. So Dharma, getting back to Dharma. Dharma is the foundational concept in Hinduism and its offshoots, in other words, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, and is contained in the name Sanatana Dharma. The word Dharma is derived from the root word dhr, which means to support or to maintain that which is the essential nature of a being, and the means of its moral and spiritual support is called its Dharma. Okay, that makes sense. There are two elements to Dharma. Number one is knowledge. Number two is works. Knowledge refers to that which leads one to a realization of one's true nature and as an inseparable aspect or expression of the divine essence. Okay, so basically, the knowledge part, once you gain more knowledge all throughout your cycle, your samsara cycle of birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, all of those, you gain more knowledge yourself. Do you know anything about this? Okay, so yourself is not Hindu.
No.
Well, because I would think that if yourself was an OG Hindu, then you would already have some knowledge about this. But you obviously know nothing about this. So you're not an OG Hindu. Yourself is not a Hindu.
No.
What is yourself? Is it Christian?
I guess.
Okay, all right. Of course it is, because we believe in Christ. Anyway.
Well, I don't believe in selves in general.
Oh, okay, your soul. Okay. All right. So, in other words, as you continue this process of cycle, recycle, birth, recycle, you gain knowledge. The more knowledge you gain, the greater ability you have to finally receive your liberation, where you are bloop, 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 back, reabsorbed back into Brahman. Expression of that. Okay. Separate expression of the divine, and establishes one's natural and eternal relationship with the Godhead. Okay, so that's when you reabsorb. And helps one to know that Brahman is the focal element of Dharma. The second element is morality, which is our personal code of conduct and ethics, which governs one's dealings with others. So in other words, Dharma is two-stage process. Number one is knowledge. You gain knowledge. Number two is you behave good. You do good works. From the Mahabharata Vanaparva, the eternal duty, or Sanatana Dharma, towards all creatures is the absence of malevolence towards them in thought, deed, or word, and to practice compassion and generosity towards them. So in other words, according to this sacred scripture, it is not to do any evil to anybody and to always practice compassion, goodness to other people. The malevolence that we bear towards others arises from judgmental attitudes based upon ignorance and a sense of separateness. Remember, as when we talked about sin is not you knowingly doing something wrong. It is you are ignorant to the fact that you are committing a sin. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the first stage of Dharma practice is to rid ourselves of all preconceived ideas and judgmental attitudes. Once we have suspended all judgment, we can then begin the development of unconditional love and compassion, which naturally result in generosity, charity, and service to all. I agree with everything they said. They just get a little too like psychological about it. The greatest obstacle to spiritual, social, and universal well-being is the double standard factor. Go ahead, Junior. Tell us what the double standard factor is.
We see everything from a selfish, subjective, personal standpoint. Our religious, social, and political views are the best. Our feelings, aspirations, failures, and disappointments are greater than anyone else's. Our possessions are more important than those of others, and our acts can be fully satisfied. So essentially, double standard factor that you're better than everyone else.
It's the ego factor.
Yeah.
It's the me. My problems are worse than yours. My successes are better than yours. My car is better than yours. My this and my that. Everything is woe to me, or I'm better than you. So once we put aside that, then we could start to actually show love and generosity towards other people. So the expanded form of Dharma, according to the Padma Purana, has 12 components. 6 of them are related to self-development, and 6 are related to relationships with others. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and read these. Number 1 is purity. The first requisite of Dharma and the foundation is the cultivation of a pure and healthy body, and hence a pure and healthy mind. It is incumbent upon the Hindu to bathe twice a day, or at least every morning, and maintain good hygiene. This is a lie. Look, I know people that have personally have gone to Mumbai. No. There's a lot of bad Dharma in Mumbai. I'm just saying. I know people that have been there, and this verse got deleted. It got abrogated. All right, so number 1 is purity, all right? So in other words, take a shower twice a day. It would help if they used soap, though, when they showered. All right, seriously. Come on, let's get serious, guys. Number 1, purity. Number 2, look, we went to Dubai. If you go to Dubai, we went to these places where mostly Hindus shop. It's like budget stores. You know, Tanya, whatever, anything she can get for the cheap, she'll go there. She walks into anything. She goes right to the clearance section. The minute you walk into the stores, the first like 3 rows is all like spray deodorants and like perspirants, you know, antiperspirants. So yeah, that just speaks to the need for purity within the Hindu religion. Okay, that's number 1 is purity. Number 2 is worship. Worship of God through the rituals that are prescribed in the various sacred literatures, which are the Vedas and the Agamas. Okay, so number 1, take a shower. Number 2, worship God. Number 3, austerity refers to simple living and the practice of meditation. Depending on what type of meditation you do, if you do transcendental meditation, if you do different types of yoga. But yeah, so that's in other words, simple living and meditation. Number 4 is self-restraint. One should strive to control one's desires and behavior, avoid excesses, and cultivate self-discipline, which is the basis of civilization. So in other words, now you can not only take a shower, you got worship God, you got live simply and meditate. Now you have self-control. Like try to have self-control. Number 5, study. This concept refers to the scriptural study through the primary scriptures, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and secondary scriptures such as the Puranas and the epics. I can never say that word. Say it.
Mahabharata.
Man, you actually did that pretty good. Like it rolled really good. And Ramayana, as well as self-study or introspection, self-analysis, and cultivation of insight into one's true self. So study is not only studying their 8 million Bibles, but it's also to study oneself, to get more introspective. And then also contentment. Development of a peaceful disposition, being content with little and accepting whatever comes to one, be it pleasant or unpleasant, with equanimity. So in other words, the first 6 that are self-development are number 1, purity, take a shower. Number 2, worship God. Number 3, simple living, meditation. Number 4, self-restraint. Number 5, study the scriptures and also study yourself. And number 6, just be happy. Just be content. Whatever situation you may be in, be content. So now what about the other 6 that have to do with others, relationship with others? Number 1, nonviolence. One should refrain from causing any injury to other living beings through word, deed, or thought. The premise is that the self in all beings is the same, and therefore one should treat all other beings with the utmost compassion as one would deal with oneself. Remembering, just so you know, Junior is sick, so that's why he's moving away from the deal. He doesn't want to cough in your face. But remember, every single thing out there is a self, and every self is equal. They're just projections of Brahman. All right. All the self is doing is trying to work its way back to Brahma. So you should never be violent with any of them. Also, truth. Practice of truth in speech and harmony in action at all times. One should speak only that which is true and agreeable. One should not needlessly say things that are hurtful, even though they may be the truth. So in other words, I wouldn't be a good Hindu. Yeah, because I'll tell you the truth to your face. You may not like it, but okay. Generosity. This has a twofold reference. One is the giving of charity to the needy, as well as social works for the benefit of society as a whole. The other reference is to the gift of fearlessness to all creatures through cultivation of complete non-injury to any being in word, deed, or thought. So in other words, the first one is the obvious one, that you're generous towards other people, you give. The second one is that you're being generous towards other selves by not eating them. So... Non-stealing. One should refrain from taking anything that is not given. The next one, the fifth one, is forgiveness, which comes from the cultivation of loving kindness to all beings. And then the last one, veneration for preceptors. The term guru or preceptor covers the parents, teachers, guides, elders, and all those who teach something, however insignificant it may be. So in other words, you are to respect all of those that are above you that teach you. In fact, Dharma encompasses all of our duties and obligations to the society and world around us. The idea of individuality is offensive to Sanatana Dharma. Everyone exists as part of a social group, and each member of the group has certain duties and obligations towards every other member of the group. So in other words, in your society, in your church, you are all a group. So you are just as responsible as everyone else to be nice and to be not stealing and to forgive and all of those to the group. And looking at it in a bigger scale, since according to them, all of us are jivas, all of us are selves, all of us are manifestations of Brahma, we should be this way with everybody. So you should treat all people kindly, humbly, lovingly. Now, what about those Christians that are being persecuted in India?
I mean,
all right. Anyway, I just had to throw that in. Just to say that, all of that was really nice. Just like the Muslim, all of it, everything they say, but the reality is something different. A great teacher of the 13th century in South India, his name was what, Junior?
Priya Chan Pillai.
Man, you actually did that one pretty good. I was going to say Priya Akan Pillai. Okay, either or. Potato. Taught that there are 4 categories of people in this world. So this guy's from the 1200s, and he's in South India. He's going to tell us that there's 4 types of people in this world. All right, this is the first one. The lowest of the low. The one who does evil in return for the good received. So in other words, these are the extreme, like, dirtbags, you know, like people do good to them and then they do evil. Then you have the low, the one who does not give anything in return for good rendered, or one who lives at the expenses of others. So in other words, the lowest of the low is the one that does evil. The low is the moocher. The one that just mooches off of society. All right. Then you have the average, the one whose help is commensurate with the help received. That is one who feels that others too should live as well as oneself. So in other words, this is the guy that he does just as he receives. He's a good guy. You know, he doesn't go above and beyond, but he also doesn't do less. And then you have what he would call the best of people in the world. This is one who does good to others without expecting anything in return, or one who feels that others should live comfortably even at the expense of one's own comforts. So that's what he would teach was the best of the best. Those that do good without expecting anything in return, and those who would rather live worse off so that others could live better. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I guess in a way, but if you add on like doing that for the glory of God, then yeah, I would agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Because all of this is very like humanistic,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But
Like if there's a guy getting persecuted because he's preaching the Bible, then yeah, that's probably that's up there as best of the best.
exactly. Now, to end this Dharma section, they have a doctrine that they call universal Dharma. There is an objective ethical code which has been revealed through scripture and is applicable to every society and all humankind. One is assured of spiritual progress and the divine grace if one follows this code, regardless of one's theological or philosophical convictions or lack thereof. So in other words, they believe that there is a universal Dharma that applies to all human beings, not just Hindus. This applies to you and me now. Mm-hmm. So if we do these things, then ultimately we'll eventually receive our liberation, right? Number one, there's 10 of them. Number one, contentment. Number two, forgiveness. Number three, self-control. Number four, truthfulness. Number five, abstention from stealing and cheating. Number six, observing physical and mental purity. Number seven, having sexual relations with one's spouse only. Number eight, pursuit of knowledge. Number nine, pursuit of wisdom. And number 10, abstention from anger. Most of those are in the other ones that we read before, the 12. But yeah, they do. The Hindus believe that there is a universal Dharma, and that even though I'm not a Hindu, if I do these things, then I'll ultimately one day I'll get divine grace from Brahman, and I'll be reabsorbed into him.
So many like false religions, they'll end up being universalists in the end in some way.
Exactly. Yeah. Even this one, somehow they make their way to everybody can be saved. You know, I mean, as long as you do these things. Yeah, you don't read our scriptures. Yeah, you don't read the Vedas. Yeah, you don't read the Upanishads. Yeah, you're not a practicing Hindu. Yeah, you don't look to Brahman or to Vishnu or to Krishna or to whatever. But if you do these things, then yeah, there will be some sort of a divine grace from Brahman at some point. Okay.
And it's just also interesting in the way that like the way the devil twists things is morally the Hindus seem very similar to us in terms of the be generous, be kind, don't be violent to others. But then it's like, oh, because you're doing these things, follow Vishnu, follow whatever, Krishna, whoever it is.
Exactly.
Don't go to Jesus.
Yeah, no. Never go to Jesus. Yeah. Go to these guys.
Yeah.
And then and remember, we only touched on like their main ones.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of other gods that they got, you know. I mean, they got millions of gods, but yeah, we'll get into some of that later.
So now that we got off the 7 tenets, now we're going into the next portion of this book.
It took 3 podcasts to do those 7 tenets.
Yeah, I know.
Or 3.5. 3.
So now we're going into...
You thought we were going to do it all on one podcast. All right, sure.
Well, I mean, not one, maybe like a couple.
It's not my fault that you find this religion very interesting.
You like going on tangents for it, too.
I don't know why, man. I'm spiced up today.
So now we're going to this portion of the book called General Information, and it seems, from what I've seen, is just kind of going over in more detail some of the, not the beliefs, but just the general, like this first one is scriptures, and is going over describing each of their books. So if you want to get started for us here.
All right, I mean, I mentioned the scriptures the first podcast, that it's ridiculous how many scriptures they got, but this is basically what they got. They break down their scriptures into different categories. They got primary, secondary, you know. Obviously, from a Christian perspective, our primary is the Bible, and that's it. There is no secondary. I mean, you have extra biblical literature. You know, you have authors, John MacArthur, he writes books, you read those. You know, you have commentaries, you read those. You know, you have different books on theology, systematic theology, all of that stuff, and you learn. But nothing holds the weight of the Bible. The Bible is our book. Everything else is whatever. Like, it's completely discarded in comparison to the Bible. These people, they have primary, secondary, so depending on what you want to learn. But their primary scriptures are the Vedas and the Agamas. Their primary texts are subdivided into 2 categories, Nigama and Agama. The Nigama, which is authoritative, are the Vedas. all sects, in other words, everybody that practices Hinduism accepts the Vedas as the highest scriptural authority. The Vedas, which means knowledge, were composed in the Sanskrit language, get this, over 6,000 years ago, which we have no proof of that. We have zero proof that there was any sort of written language back then. They are the written records, that's a lie, of the mystical. Tell them to show you one example of just one proof of something written. They are the written records of the mystical experiences of great sages called rishis, who directly realized the highest truth and were fully enlightened beings. So in other words, we know based on number one, based on the Bible, based on the history of humanity, that humanity is roughly 7,000 years old. Somehow these incredible rishis, only 1,000 years into the game, which not even, because Adam then had his kids and then they had the kids, they had their kids. Somehow these guys had already reached that 100,000 rebirth at this point, and they were already they were fully enlightened beings.
Makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The corpus of the Veda is subdivided into 4 books. You got the Rig, the Yajur, the Sama, and the Atharvana, which contains hymns and philosophical speculation about the nature of the ultimate reality. So in other words, this book, it explains the nature of Brahman, of what is this ultimate reality. These writings are considered by modern scholars to be the oldest literary compilations known to mankind. The Veda is considered by Hindus to be timeless and eternal and contain all that there is to know about Brahman and Dharma. The existence of a supreme reality may be inferred by deductive reasoning, but actual knowledge of that, its qualities, activities, and teachings come only from the Veda. The Veda is always studied in the original Sanskrit text, which has remained unchanged through millennia. The interpretation of the scriptures is therefore governed by strict rules and guidelines, which have been set down thousands of years ago. No self-interpretation is permitted, and the guidance of a teaching authority, a guru, is of paramount importance. So in other words, don't just grab the Vedas and try to interpret them yourselves. Always go through a guru. The most important sections of the Vedas are known as the Upanishads, which deal directly with the nature of Brahman and the self. These are the only Vedic texts which are studied and taught extensively in the Hindu world. Now, the other ones were the Agamas. The Agamas are also known as the Tantras and have equal authority with the Vedas, but are more user-friendly. These texts are more concerned with the practical and experiential aspects of religious belief and practice. These texts are divided into 3 groups: the Saiva, the Vaishnava, and the Shakta. The Agamas or Tantras contain the directions, rules, and regulations for temple building, sculpturing of icons, festivals, and other liturgical matters, as well as programs for personal spiritual development. So in other words, the Vedas tell you about God and about yourself. The Agamas tell you what to do with that information. Basically, that's what it is, right? The practical way of living. Now you have the secondary scriptures, which are what, Junior?
The Smarties. I think Smarties is kind of funny. And Sutras.
Yeah, it's spelled SMRTIS.
It's missing a vowel there.
Yeah. There's no. You can't. How do you pronounce SMRT? Smirt.
I think.
Smirtis.
Yeah, Smarties.
Okay, no, Smirtis.
Smirtis.
Because you said Smirties.
I think Smarties.
Okay, so let's just say Smarties and Sutras. All right. The Smarties, which is the oral law. The Smarties are books dealing with sacred laws, their canon law, as well as judicial law, composed by various great lawgivers such as Manu. These sages do not usually claim the status of revelation for their teachings and interpretations, but do assert that the Vedas are their source. So the Smarties are what gives smart people the ability to make laws. All right. So it's funny that we call it Smarties because it's laws. So it's Smarties. All right. And then the sutras are the domestic guides. They contain rules and regulations about domestic conduct, the duties of householders, ceremonies, sacraments. This is the field of study of domestic priests. So in other words, the now secondary, obviously the Vedas, the Upanishads, all of that is first. That explains who Brahma is, who the self is, all of that stuff. Now the next level of stuff is laws, judicial laws, how one is to behave at home, conduct rules, all of that stuff.
Essentially like their Mosaic law, right? Their version of Mosaic law.
Their version of we would call the Mosaic law.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically our book of Leviticus and Exodus and Deuteronomy. Now, tertiary scriptures, they have the Puranas and the Itihasas. You have the Puranas, which is their tradition. They are encyclopedias of spiritual and mundane information. They are elaborate commentaries on the Vedas and contain every type of knowledge from cosmology to gardening and horse breeding. There are 18 major Puranas, and these are freely available in translation for the use of clergy and especially the laity. So now you not only have your book that explains God, you then have your laws and your traditions and your laws and your conduct, your codes of conduct. Now you have your Encyclopedia Britannica that it kind of explains different things for you. And the Itihasas, which they call them their epics, there are two great epics which have shaped the cultural life of the entire Southeast Asia region. They are the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. These are epic stories containing historic as well as legendary accounts of ancient kings, as well as the philosophical discourses, elaboration on certain doctrinal points, hymns, and parables. The other two texts which fall under this category are the Harivamsha and the Yoga Vasista.
It's like they're historical accounts.
So you understand now, like looking at it more from a global view, you have books explaining God, then you have books explaining laws, and then books explaining domestic things, conducts and all that. Then you have information books like their Encyclopedia Britannicas. Now you have their epic tales, like the Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings Hindu edition, where these great kings and Mordor and my precious. So you have those type of books that are comprise their authoritative library, which I find it funny. It's almost like, look, I think that what is the book by Paul Bunyan?
What
the Pilgrim's Progress?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the greatest works of all time. But I'm not going to put that up. I'm not even going to mention it as being part of our authoritative books, But all right.
Well, I think a good comparison could be like 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, maybe. This guy makes it seem like historical account, kind of.
Well, but he says that they are epic, containing stories as well as legendary accounts of ancient kings.
Okay.
But I guess it could be what we would call 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Chronicles, those type of things. Now, what about the validity of these sacred texts? How long have we been running?
We're an hour now.
Already. What about the validity of these sacred texts? Now, obviously, that's my question. I'm like, where do these people gain scriptural authority on this? I mean, we in Christianity, we have a literal hand down where we could show you scriptural texts have been handed down, preserved perfectly. This is what they say. Scriptural testimony, in order to be valid and relevant, must fulfill 3 conditions. Number 1, it must be interpreted according to reason. To reason. It should not contradict, direct, objective, perception, or inference. It should be internally consistent. It should supply us with knowledge not accessible through other sources. So in other words, they feel like all of their scriptures that have passed this, have gone through this, that it is interpreted according to reason. It should not contradict, but we already saw a contradiction with the other one, with the 8 billion, the 311 trillion. It should be consistent, and it should give us knowledge that is not accessible through other means. The content of scripture is further divided into 4 categories. Now remember, we're talking about here interpretation, you know? Number 1, theology and injunctions. Passages which describe the attributes of God and give injunctions in the matters of right living and ethics, Dharma. This is the kernel of scripture. All else is the husk. So in other words, whenever a verse talks about God's attributes, or you're the living that you should be living, your right living, your Dharma, that is core. That's the steak. They call it the kernel. We in America, we call it the steak. Everything else is the potato.
Yeah.
You know? Second, eulogistic or declamatory text. These are texts which exhort to greater virtue and piety by offering rewards of heaven or good rebirth, and texts which discourage wickedness by prospects of hellfire and brimstone. These are not to be taken seriously, but as a bolster for irresolute selves, like a child who is bribed to take a medication with promises of sweets or toys. So now, this is interesting, right? The text that basically tell you, okay, be a good person, live a good life. Those, you take them, but they're not like solid.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of like whatever. So in other words, like some text that we would have, like maybe some of the Psalms, you know, you kind of just discard those as not being as important as like the book of John.
But I found it weird that it's rewards but also punishments, but you're not supposed to take the punishment serious. So
what's the point of the punishment?
Is it a metaphor? What is the point of it being written down?
Ask the guru. The guru, you need that. Don't even try to interpret that.
Yeah.
Go to the guru. Number 3, doxology. These are verses that are prayers, hymns, and ritual formula for use in the liturgy. So in other words, those are verses that, like, for instance, we have a lot of doxology verses in the New Testament, and those are generally used a lot by the Catholic Church when they do their homilies or their little preachings. And then lastly, you have parables and homilies, fables and legends of the doings of gods, sages, princes, and heroes, which usually have some moral principle as their objective. They may or may not be actual historical accounts. The form of these stories is irrelevant. What matters is the content and the message. So in other words, when you go and you preach out of their version of the Lord of the Rings book, you know, it's usually not to be taken literal. It's more about the message behind it.
There's a lot of fantasy in these books, though.
A lot of fantasy, dude. Once again, when you know you're fake when your own people are saying fables and legends.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of religion has fables and legends in the first place? Like, you think religion is something that is composed, comprised, structured, something that has core belief systems. But then once you throw in fables and legends, then you've already basically ripped apart your religion.
Yeah.
You've turned it into something false. All right. They did it to themselves. I'm just reading from their book, by the way. Now, to end this section about the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, we mentioned this before. This is a unique work, which is said to be the recorded dialogue between the incarnation of the Supreme Godhead, Krishna, and his friend and disciple Arjuna on a chariot on the field of battle. Because it is the direct teaching of God, of course, because they believe Krishna was the avatar of God. It comes under the category of Nigama or Veda. And since it is also a manual of scriptural exercises, it could also be classified as an Agama. So since it talks about God, and since it talks about the nature of God, it can be a Veda. But since it also talks about spiritual exercises, you can also put it as an agama. So the Bhagavad Gita, that's why they consider this kind of their Bible, because it really has all angles here. Whatever its classification, it has become one of the most universally popular of all the Hindu scriptures and has captured the imagination of many Western philosophers and theologians. If any book can be said to be the Hindu Bible, it would be the Bhagavad Gita. So, many people have talked negative about it because it actually promotes war with the feel of battle. The teachings contained in the text address personal struggles, failures, disappointments, and fears, and show us how to attain peace and harmony in our lives. So those are some of the core teachings of that book, the Bhagavad Gita, which we could say that it is the Hindu Bible, if we want to look at it that way.
This next section, Grace and Works, isn't too long if you want to get through it today.
Okay, sure. So what do you want me to say?
So the next section is Grace and Works. So now that we went through their scripture, their holy scripture in a way, now it's, I guess, the practical side of it, putting those books to work. So maybe you could explain it to us.
Okay, so first of all, what is grace?
A gift from God that we don't deserve.
What is works?
Something like good things that you do, I suppose.
Oh, I mean, you could have bad works. I mean, works.
Yeah,
works are not just works are what you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So within Hinduism, they have their ideas of grace and works. Let me read to you from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 40. Neither here in this world, nor there in the next world, or in the next cycle, 311 trillion years, O Arjuna, is there destruction for him. For verily, no one who does good, my son, ever comes to grief. So there is Krishna telling Arjuna that if you do good, you will never have grief, which we know that that's a lie, but okay. Hindus believe that for any real degree of spiritual progress, divine grace is essential. So in other words, all of them believe that, yes, you can progress on your own. You can learn knowledge, you start out as a piece of grass, then you turn into a mosquito, then you turn into an ant, then you turn into a dog, then you turn into a bull, then you turn into a giraffe, then you turn into a human being, and then you go on and you go on and you go on and you go on that. But along with that samsara, the constant cycle of life, of death and rebirth, they believe that there is divine grace from God. Which God is it? I don't even know if it tells us here. Is it Isvara? Is it Brahman? It's
one of them.
Is it Vishnu the sustainer? I mean, wouldn't it be him? Because I don't know. It doesn't matter. There are three types of grace, they believe. The grace of the self, the grace of the guru, and the grace of God. So the three types. Grace of the self, which is who you are.
Yeah.
Grace of the guru, the dude in white. Grace of God. We still are not sure which one, though. Firstly, we need to develop a loving, accepting, and compassionate relationship with ourselves before we can really embark on any serious spiritual journey. So in other words, before you truly start your spiritual journey, you need to develop a relationship of compassion and love for yourself. So in other words, if you ain't right, then you can't move on. You need to get right with yourself, all right? Cultivating an optimistic and positive attitude towards ourselves is the prerequisite preparation for the spiritual journey. So number one, you got to get right with yourself. Next, the grace of the guru can be earned through our dedication to the path, to study, and the application of the teachings in daily life. So once you get right with yourself, now you can go to the guru. And if you do what the guru says, if you follow the teachings of the guru, if you do what the guru asks of you, then you can receive grace from the guru. So that dude sitting up top on a pillow with like this extravagant hat on, wearing like a white robe, that dude can give me grace. Okay.
Sure.
Now the third one, the grace of God. This grace cannot be earned. It is a gift freely given to all beings, regardless of religious beliefs, sect, gender, species, or sexual orientation. All that is required by God is an excuse to shower his mercy and grace. And the nature of that grace depends entirely upon God himself. But since God has enjoined upon us charity, compassion, worship, etc., we can therefore assume that some certainty that these good works can act as an excuse for the bestowal of grace. See, in Christianity, we have the concept of common grace. In theology, we believe that there's two types of grace. There's common grace, which is grace that God has upon all humanity. The fact that he gives birds, the fact that he gives us air to breathe, the fact that he is sovereign, but he gives common grace to believers and non-believers. And then there's special grace, which is a grace that is given to believers. These people, they have a concept of a common grace, but then they take it a little bit further and say that since God really wants to give us grace, he needs to have an excuse. And the excuse is that you do good works. And then since you did good works, now, yes, I can give out grace. In other words, their view of God is in wherever, everywhere, everything, all at once. He really wants to give grace, but he needs an excuse. And the excuse is you doing good works. And to end this little mini section, there are two types of grace. The first one is Kripa. Kripa grace, it awakens in one the desire to pursue the path to liberation and to serve the Lord in loving devotion. So in other words, this first type of grace, this grace awakens within you your desire for knowledge, to learn more, to do more. Then the other type of grace is prasada. Prasada grace grants release from the cycle of rebirth. Isvara himself is the cause as well as the instrument of this grace. So in other words, the first type of grace is God awakening in you the desire to worship him more, to get more involved in all of his 50 books, to get involved in all of that. The second one is prasada, which is granted to you by Isvara himself, which is the projection of Brahman. And this is the one that finally gets you your moksha, your liberation, gets you out of the cycle of birth and rebirth. Mm-hmm. So those are the types of grace. That's when they talk about grace. I mean, there's other stuff here, but that's their view on grace.
Yeah, those are their definitions of
their
grace.
definitions of grace. And obviously, it is very different than what we would consider grace. They put a lot of humanity behind the bestowal of God's grace, as if God cares that I helped an old lady cross the street. I mean, he might say, "Oh, thank you for that," but he's not going to say, "Finally, Danny helped that old lady. Now I can bless him." You know what I mean? God doesn't work that way.
All right. Well, next week we'll be continuing on with the family and society.
Yeah, we got family, society. We got icons and temples. Yeah. We got polytheism and pantheism. We got eschatology. What is their view on the final things? We got the problem with sin. That's a major topic. You got sexual matters. We got some of those things to talk about. You got astrology. You have Sanatamba Dharma and other faiths. You got preaching. I'm basically going through the whole book here.
This book is long still. We only got through about half of it so far.
Yeah, you said, one or two podcasts.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.
See, because the thing is that I know as I read this book, it isn't so much a content because I could just sit here and read this in 2 hours. It's more that I knew that we were going to do a lot of this just because it is so weird. So the fact that we're doing a lot of this, it just takes up time.
More time. I don't know, I just find it's almost funny in a way that's like kind of what we said, that the devil takes Christian ideas, like this morally is very similar to what we're taught in Christianity, and just twist it. And then like you take Islam, and it's like they take some of the stories and the ideas from the Bible, they twist it. It's like they're both taking things from the religion that God gave us and twisting it to then follow the false gods afterwards.
Yeah, Islam takes the stories and then applies it immorally.
Yeah.
These people don't take the stories, but they have the morality.
Yeah.
So it's just incredible,
And those are the other two top religions in the world.
Exactly. The other two top religions are, one is very immoral, the other one's moral. However, if you ask them, they both say that they are the right religion, and they will both say that they are morally the best. Okay, very good.
Sure. All right. That's final thoughts for you?
I'm good. I've been talking for an hour. What else do you want me to say?
Nothing.
All right. Do you want to say anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. Fine. I found this podcast to be quite interesting.
Cool. Thank you guys for joining us. As we said earlier, please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel to grow. And thank you. We'll see you guys next week.
God bless you all.
God bless.